Good evening. I'm Kirsten. You already know that. Dysfunctional microphone got me off my game a little. I'm so excited to be here with this extraordinary panel so that we can talk about producing. I wanted to start just by acknowledging how hard it is to work in this industry in this moment, with so much business consolidating and a lot of people out of work. I think a lot of people scared about what's coming next. And I wanted to hear from each of you what your sort of perspective is on this and how hard it really is or how hopeful you might be feeling.
You're looking at me. Am I going first?
You go first, Amy.
All right. If I keep doing this, it's not because I have anything weird with my ears. I'm trying to keep this thing there. I am a hopeful person. I do think it's a really hard time to be a producer. I think it's a really hard time to get started being a producer. You know, when 100 million years ago, when I was starting in this business, producers had a different place in the world than they do now. But, being a producer is a Jedi mind trick. So I think you have to practice learning how to be a Jedi and getting what you want without anybody knowing it. And that was true then, and I think that's true now.
How about you, Issa?
I do feel that, listen, I started as a writer, then worked as a director for the longest time, and only recently I started to produce what I make. But the truth of the matter is, I've never felt that there was a stability in the business, ever. Mm-hmm. It's always a changing landscape. When I first moved to the US, we were coming out of the first strike in my life, which was 2008. No, not in my life. I'm not that young. The first one I saw. The truth of the matter is, there was this entire question of this new thing streaming. And this new landscape where continents are converging and creating this Pangea, which is anti-natural history in a way. And I don't know how healthy it is. I actually think I know, but it doesn't look very healthy. But it doesn't mean this is its final form. What I do feel is change is happening faster and faster. So this particular incarnation, we still are figuring it out, but we were figuring it out in 2008. And I think we will be figuring it out in 10 years. The point is, in the moment, how do you get out the story you need to tell in the current landscape? Mm-hmm. And you need to understand the direction of the current and, from your little perspective and believe in your story and get out of there and find the cracks. There's always going to be cracks, even in huge continents, hopefully.
And Brittani, what's your take on this?
If the downturn continues, I'm feeling pretty good about moving into self-help because of this microphone. I really feel like I could just, raise your hand if you're ready to change your life.
I am so glad you mastered that fucking thing.
I'm working in television as a producer, and I think one of the jobs that a lot of people wish there were more of. So when people bring this up, I sort of am speaking to it from the other side of hey, when these jobs exist, they're really good, because of the strike, because of what we were able to accomplish with that. It's a really good job, and it's just a shame that there aren't more of them. And I don't think that that's something that we as creatives are necessarily in charge of. All we can do is say, hey, look at the success when you give a creator an opportunity, when you give them a staff that they believe in, when you give them the resources that they need, people will react. People like watching television. Just give people good television to watch. In a lot of ways, it's as simple as that to me.
That's a great answer. I actually want to come back to that in a minute, but before we do, I want to come to Samantha and get your take on this.
Well, I'm an indie film, which is, I think, a little bit different, which has always been
It's a lot
extremely
different.
hard. Yeah, exactly. So it's always been really hard. We're always scraping for money and figuring out how to make what we want to make. It's harder to get money now than it used to be. But like Amy, I'm hopeful. The thing is, I feel like the industry having these problems, we will figure out how to move forward in a way that works better, and I'm hopeful that we'll figure that out.
I agree. I mean, even if it is breaking a little bit,
Yeah.
that's good for all of us, because that's when change comes, and that's when there's opportunity. And I think, I don't know, for me, as long as there's still 3 acts, then there's always going to be stories, and
Yeah.
stories are going to always need producers.
Yeah.
So just keep the 3-act thing going.
Yeah, and we just keep on moving forward, figure out a new way, and then we move forward from there.
Yeah.
Well, and you all are here on this panel today because you've made extraordinary films and television shows in the last couple of years. And you all have projects, I think, that people are inspired by and moved by. So can you talk a little bit about how, and it'll be slightly different moving from independent film to studio to television, but how you were able to bring these stories to life, whether that's from the full production side or wherever you came into the production.
You'll
Start with you. Yeah, we'll go this way.
Well,
Starting with independent.
I produce with predominantly with Sean Baker. He's my business partner and my everything partner, and so I'm there from the very beginning. So the beginning of developing, which we usually do on the road, we develop a story, then we write it, then we figure out who's going to be involved, and we also shoot on location. The place that we shoot in is usually a character in the story, and we move on from there. So then once we have a story, then we get money, we budget, and all of that. So it's very DIY at a certain point. And it's just me, Sean, and our other producer, Alex Coco, and our little team figures it out from the ground up, and then we work on them for years.
Well, I guess it's a little bit different for me because I ran a studio for a long time and worked in the studio system for a long time, and they got fired, like everybody does. So if you get a job at a studio, know that's going to happen. That's the only way out of that job. But I really think that what I was meant to do was this, because in the days when I was at Columbia, it was a slightly different world, and we got to be different than I think some studio heads get to be now. There were more studios, and everybody was making more movies, and there was no streaming. So it was a really different world. But the way it starts is somebody has a really good idea, and my job is to see if I can like it enough to help them make it, And at this point, I really only want to work on things that I want on my gravestone, because that's coming. But you just have to love it so much that you don't care how bad it is sometimes, or how hard it is, or that the making of a movie is so hard and it takes so long to get there. Doesn't matter if you're making your kind of movies or movies at studios, Spider-Man. Even those movies take a really long time to make. They take a long time to have a good idea. Good ideas are really in short supply. So I think once you feel something and you think it's worth it, just kill yourself to get it done.
Well, for me, it was different. I worked making movies in Mexico. I'm Mexican, and yes, there's no cure for that one. So, and you cannot be fired from that. I've tried.
Absolutely.
So I made movies in Mexico, and one of the movies I made with Sony got attention in the US, and I moved to make movies here. What nobody told me is that if you have one project and you think that project is going to be made, you're in for a surprise. If you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, you're still in for a bunch of surprises. 7 is around the number where one of them gets made. But I had one when I moved here, and it fell apart. And then I tried to get another one, and it fell apart, and another one, and it fell apart, and I was like, fuck this, I'm going to Mexico. Went to Mexico, made an independent movie that was absolutely personal, and I felt nobody was going to be interested in seeing it. And things happened with that tiny movie. And then I got the call again, and I was like, yeah, I know how that works. It doesn't. But I had learned from my mistakes, and I started developing several projects at the same time. And the ones you think are the ones that have a chance of being made usually don't. And then out of the blue, when you think that's the one, what happened to me, I got a phone call because of the tiny, strange movie I made in Mexico. And the call was, what would you do with True Detective? Which I was definitely not expecting, but I said, I have ideas. And hung up, went to have some ideas. And then went back and said, I think, because I'm Mexican, that you think I'm going to pitch you about the border and cartels. And I was like, it's going to be in the fucking North Pole. And they gave me the job. So here we are.
That was awesome, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really awesome. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that the one pearl of how do you do it is persist.
Yes.
You know, if you cannot make it happen in one place, go to a different place. If that story is not going to fly, cry, move on, think of a different one. Do not take no. And then the big other challenge I found in this town is rarely you hear no. Because no is clear. And then you go, thank you, I'm going to take it somewhere else. It's always like, yeah. Yeah, but. Or it could be this different thing. Yes, that, but. So, fuck that. Make it happen. Make it happen.
I'm with you.
You're on the you're on the fourth season of an award-winning show. How do you do it?
Yeah, that's not so hard.
I just go to work every day, is how I see it. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know how network TV works just because there's so little of it these days. But we're writing, shooting, and airing at the same time right now. And I think coming from the background that I think a lot of people my age who are now working in TV come from, a lot of us came up producing our own work. We were doing web series, we were doing podcasts. A lot of the staff on Abbott Elementary worked for BuzzFeed. So we really had this sort of background of just figuring out how to just get it done. And I think that now that's sort of paying dividends for a lot of people that have that background, because we've entered a space where a lot of the time writing and production has been separated. And we are on one of the rare jobs where we as writers do actually get to do the producing part of our title. And so I am excited for people to, I think, lean back into producing your own stuff. I feel like what you were saying about like the creativity and the things changing, as long as the 3-act structure is there, that will be okay. And I feel like as long as people take this opportunity to say, I'm not going to stop making things just because the industry has decided to stop making things, and we all sort of rally around ourselves as creatives the way that you have to at the beginning of your career to just figure out how to get it done, I think that's going to produce a lot of really interesting art that we'll all be happy and excited to see.
I just to second what you're saying, I totally agree. And think of how many things in the world wouldn't have happened if somebody said, oh, you don't want it? Okay. I mean, like everything wouldn't have happened. So you just have to go and do it. I'm with you.
I like this this way of thinking, right? That as things are kind of falling apart, there is room for us to be building something new. you all are creative people. As we think about what kind of building that new thing is, what's inspiring you? Either about things that you are already seeing happening, things you're participating in, or things that you maybe would envision for the future. I'm going to start this time with Brittani. Is that
You
too,
didn't
is that
expect
too
that.
big of a question?
I did it. I wasn't ready. It really is. I mean, it's so funny to be sitting here with someone who produced a Sean Baker film, because Tangerine was what made me make Suicide Kill, which is the feature film.
Oh,
I
so awesome.
that literally helped me get into my first scripted room. Like, it's just such a crazy world. But I really think it just all comes back to like the community that we have, and I think that we lose that a bit once you start getting the jobs where you are paid and you do start to depend on the yeses and the nos from the people up here and forget about the yeses from the people right next to you. And that to me is just like, already I'm just sitting here being like, right, I need to reconnect with all these people. I need to like get back to just making it and putting your nose to the ground and just doing it. I think that it's a big, scary endeavor to make something creative. But there's, to me, I think nothing scarier than the idea of not making anything again. And I think that if you let the fear that is pervading the industry right now get to you, that's what you would be facing down. And so I think we just have to move away from that fear of what if I never get to make something again, and just connect.
I
with
love
people
that
and make
answer.
stuff. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's a gift.
Pulled it right out of there.
Except at 3 a.m. in a dark night when it creeps back.
I want to talk a little bit about sort of the state of women, non-binary, transgender people in the industry right now. So when I started at WIF almost 10 years ago, it felt like the wind was at our backs, right? So people were paying attention. They were, even though the numbers were still low, they were starting to go up. We now are experiencing some backslide. The numbers are starting to move backwards. I'm wondering how you all are experiencing this in your everyday work lives. Like, are you getting more no's? We'll take that. And I want to start with you, actually, Issa.
Before I answer that, I do want to say very briefly that you were asking about the inspiration. What brings you to make it again, to suffer again, to bleed again? And it's other people's work. It's the beauty. Every time that I feel like I can't do this anymore, I just can't. And then I sit down and I just play a movie and I find something. And it's you go like, I cannot not. Because either I can do that, or I will never do something as beautiful, but I want to reach. And it just feeds you. I mean, even bad stuff, you go like, no way that thing got made. No, so you feed from stories, And I do believe that the darkness ahead, and this is not to feed fears, but brings people to need the stories, both as solace and as inspiration. So we cannot afford to stop, especially when what we do is representing. And I am worried. I'm trying to fight it with many different chemicals and a lot of inspiration. And chemicals. I am afraid that a script that I have greenlit for a movie that is about children in a refugee, not a refugee, and undocumented minors on the border, say, for example. And it's greenlit, it's ready to go. I'm just waiting to finish a little season of a TV show called True Detective, and then I'm going to make that. But this morning I was like, yeah, that movie's greenlit, and I was like, but is there going to be second thoughts about a movie that 2 years ago there was interest in making? And I don't know. And I want to believe that there is going to be a space. And if there's not going to be a space, we need to create it. We need to find it.
100%. Because we need that.
cannot
We
stop.
need that movie now more than ever. You can't not make that movie.
Yeah. So the same goes for representation and, trans characters and all the things and all the faces and all the voices that need. It was so hard to win that space. We cannot let it go. We can't.
Mm-hmm.
I think also, movies are about people, and people are really interesting, and I think people interest all of us, and the way to make movies about people is for the problems that people have, no matter who they are to be the same exact problems that you have and that everybody else has, and it's who they are and what they are, and if you're afraid of it or you don't understand it or it's scary to you, if it's just somebody that you can relate to who has all the same problems you do, I think that's a way of breaking through everything, because we're all the same. And for people who don't know that, movies can help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Remind us.
And if someone doesn't greenlight it, you just make an indie.
Just call her, and she'll raise the money for you.
Because the thing is you can, even now, like Tangerine, you bring up Tangerine. Tangerine was shot on iPhones.
Right.
I remember Sean had a broomstick and a bicycle, and that's how he did, a tracking shot that moved, from above.
Yeah,
if you want to make it,
You could make it.
make it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You can make it.
That's how much you need to want to
Yeah.
make it, though.
Exactly, but if you love it, you can make it. And I think that it's important to know that, the people saying no, you can say, okay, I'm just going to do it anyway.
Yeah, because people are scared. They're allowed to be scared. Let them be scared. You do something else.
So even in the best of times, being a producer is hard work. And I think often as women, it is even harder work. I was listening to a panel earlier today that we're talking about the sandwich generation, the caregiving that women are often doing for the little ones and then the older people. And so how do you maintain any kind of work-life balance?
The other
please.
women are going to have to answer that one.
Wait, what was that?
The other women in the panel are going to have to answer that one.
I don't get that question. I don't understand the work-life balance thing. I know my kid says it all the time. What? Just work if you want a job. You want to make a movie? Get out there and fucking make it. What's a work-life balance? That was invented 10 years ago. Sorry.
I don't either. I don't have a work-life balance.
I have a fantastic son. I was guilty when I was with him, and I was guilty when I wasn't with him. That's how it is.
That is probably an unpopular sentiment in my household with younger people.
Yeah.
I know. Too bad.
And perhaps also. All right, Brittani, do you have a take on this?
Sorry.
I hate
I'll probably
work,
get
so-
arrested now.
Wait, you hate work?
Yeah. I don't want to work. Who wants to work? I guess I found the two people that want to work. I don't want to work. I want to chill at home.
So you're figuring that out.
No, I'm chilling. I have figured it out. I'm chilling at home quite a bit.
Right on.
And also on the fourth season of an award-winning television show.
Yes.
So I think you would be the answer, the model that it is possible.
Yeah, I think on Abbott, we're lucky enough to have a lot of people that hate work, and we all want to go home. The showrunners
Oh my God.
want to go home,
That's
the
best.
co-APs want to go home, the directors want to go home. We want to go home. So we work hard, and then we get to go home.
Amazing. I love that. And
That's the best answer ever.
and I think it's actually a good model. I have a colleague who has really been pushing for French hours in our industry, so just to work shorter days and get it done.
Yeah, I don't know about French hours. I like lunch.
Samantha, what happens in your world?
I have no work-life balance. It's just life.
Yeah.
Work is
Right.
You know, we're always developing things. Like I said, it's when you're an indie, you're not making money. Like we make things because we love them. And it's our life. We love to do it. We love every part of the process. Well, not every part, but you know, it's stressful. But that I feel like that's the life that we chose, and I regret nothing.
All right, so we were talking a little bit before the panel, and Amy asked, well, what is the hardest part of this job? And I want to add to that, what is either the hardest part of this job or the most rewarding part of this job? And so, Amy, why don't we start with you?
Oh, God. All right. Honest, the hardest part is being honest, right? The hardest part is being completely transparent and telling the truth. Because it's really easy not to, and it really sucks sometimes to have to do it. And you have to be really brave, and you have to, like, say the real thing that you're feeling, that's going on, that other people are feeling. And that's hard because it's not very popular, and it makes people feel bad sometimes. But it's essential, I think, in a general way, maybe in life too. The funnest part to me is, not this thing, like help. One of the things that I love is the night where the movie opens and you get to go to the movie theater and you get to stand in the back and you see all these people like loving the movie that you got to be a part of. And it's a completely thrilling, exhilarating thing. Just to be a part of something that so many people participated in, and then so many people are experiencing, I think that's wonderful. And one of the things about making really, really big movies, is that is that you get it, like, there's a night where everybody in the fucking world is going to see your movie all at the same time. It's awesome.
Yeah.
She apologized, but you might clean up this award season, so.
Oh, well, she definitely is cleaning up the award season, let's be honest about that.
The hardest thing is money. Because the thing is,
You don't have any.
We don't have any money. We don't get much money. But what I mean is, it's like we make things that we love, right? So we have to get funding for that. And because we make things that we love and we're not willing to compromise on what we want to do, we don't want anyone saying, actually, it would be better if you changed the ending. Nope. It would be better if you cast all stars, changed the ending, cut here, and made it more like this. Nope, sorry. And because of that, we get less money because it makes it less commercial. And the dream is to be able to make the movie that you want to make, right? So like for Anora, we got a little bit more money than we've ever had, and we were able to do things that we couldn't do before. We shot on 35 millimeter film, which was awesome. There was a scene where he wanted a helicopter instead of a drone.
Right.
A drone would have been cheap.
Yep.
He wanted a helicopter because the way that the helicopter moves, you
different.
know, it's just more alive. And he's like,
Yeah.
I wanted it to feel like 1974. I don't want it to feel like 2024. So we're like, okay, we'll do these things. And every other movie that we worked on, he's had to compromise so many things. Oh, we're so sorry, but you have this car crash scene. We can't afford it. you know, or for Tangerine, it was shot on iPhones because that's all, you know, that's what could be afforded. And this time there was one point where, I think it was 3/4 of the way through, he was standing there and he was looking at everything and he said, you know what, this movie looks exactly the way I pictured it in my head. And for him and he said, this is the first time I haven't had to compromise all of the things that I wanted, and it just, this is what I wanted, and all the actors, like the Russians, everything. And to me, that was just like, oh my gosh, like it's not that much money comparatively to other things, but for us and for him, it completed that vision, and that's what means so much.
That's amazing.
You know?
I've worked with a lot of directors who got a lot more money and never said this is what I want. They're like, God damn it, you fucking screwed me.
Well, I'm imagining that's also testament to who you are as a producer, that you made all that happen. So.
Well,
Yay, right on.
we do what we love, you know? And I think that, I know that this is different for different producers, but for me and my other partner, it's really important for us to, whatever the vision is, we don't say no. We say, we'll figure that out.
Right.
And we do.
Right. Can I say something about what you said also? Is that you said that, like, maybe it would be more commercial if everybody had a puppy or, you know, whatever, because so everybody would like them and whatever. And, like, a lot of people impose, like, oh, here's what would make this commercial. And I don't think they fucking know.
I don't think they do either, but they have the money.
Yeah, but the authenticity of your stuff and your stuff and your stuff is what makes it commercial, because it moves people, and that's the whole ballgame. Yeah.
Brittany, what is the hardest part of your job?
I'm gonna go for a more poetic answer than I think the real one, which is probably like the, you know, managing people and that sort of thing. And say the hardest part is making people laugh. I think that our journey with the award season has really made us proud of how good we are at really making people laugh. It's not easy. If it was, then every comedy that you watch would be hilarious, and
they're not.
And for me, as someone who has, you know, under the boot of capitalism, monetized my coping mechanism of making jokes, the best part is then that I get to make jokes all the time. I work in a workplace where that is, you know, king. Making other people laugh is both the sign of doing a good job and a sign of, like, enjoyment and liking being where you are and sharing moments with people all the time. It's really, I think, special to be in a comedy room and to be making comedy. Comedy is important, and the act of making people laugh is something that I think is not always valued.
Completely.
That is a brilliant answer, and you all are doing that in a way that is like multi-generational, right? Like my little ones watch it and are laughing. You know, my mom watches it and is laughing, and it's witty. I really love it. Thank you for making everybody laugh.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for watching.
Through this, I've always thought, because I've done comedy and horror, and I think those are the two hardest genres, no doubt. They're going for a very organic reaction. It comes from a deep place in the body. And they're the toughest genres, and they're the genres that are less considered seriously in the business, which is so unfair, because mastery of those two is one of the hardest things in the world.
All right, we're nearing the end of this, but I would love to hear from you, Issa. What's the hardest thing about what you do?
There's two things that are very tough that I found in this business. One is the death of a project, because sometimes you can take that project and take it somewhere else, but many times you can't. And then it's dead and it's gone, and you sometimes have cast and locations and wardrobe, or if you didn't, you had an idea for them and you slaved yourself working, in my case, writing, draft after draft after draft, trying to keep it true, but trying to give something to the person that is going to sign the check without, and then after years, because it takes years, it's not going to be made. And it is, in my experience, not that far away from losing someone you love. And it's tough on the spirit, and you know that you're going to do it over and over and over again in order to be there for the ones that survive. The other thing that is terrible is making the movie. And then, making the movie in itself for me has been very joyful. And I know a lot of people, incredible filmmakers, that suffer making the movies, whatever, man. Okay, but I love making them. But you make it and you finish it and you put everything in them, and then they go out into the world and nobody watches them sometimes. And it's terrible, or they get, I so far, no would, but the idea of being absolutely destroyed by reviews, that's not as important, but nobody liking or sitting down to watch nobody sets out to make a bad movie, ever. So I've learned to be very kind. And it's an effort and it's an exercise about the work and the storytelling and the filmmaking of everybody else, because you leave your life and your internal organs in that thing. So it's very tough. What is amazing is very similar to what you're saying. TV doesn't give you this unless you happen to listen to a conversation in the other table in the cafe. But in cinema, after the premiere, is going on the middle of the week to a projection of your movie with people who doesn't know your face, because you're the producer, you're the writer, you're the director, and sitting between them and hearing them gasp in all the right places and being moved in all the right places and laughing all the right places and then walking out of there quietly. And that's why we do this, I think.
All right, I know we have to be done, but I want to say one thing, because there's a bunch of ladies here. As a person who's made more bad movies than good, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make a big, messy mistake and just be wrong. You don't get one chance. You just don't. And girls think you get one, and if you fuck it up, it's over, but it isn't true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
I believe that.
We're always so hard on ourselves.
We're so hard on ourselves.
Thank you all so much for everything you do and for being here today.